Hello again. Last time on RP-0 America, we flew a America Atlas sounding rocket, and so now I'm going to take a look at the data, the value of the center stage. So the center engine, the core sustainer, so I'm going to pull up an R&D window for it. I currently actually do, I've never used it, so I actually have no data for it. So I'm just showing the R&D console. It hasn't been balanced, like the realism overhaul guys like me will have to kind of do some play and tweaking for values, but right now it's just the standard test flight values of 100 units of data per day at 100 funds per day. And so I'm going to hire the cheapest team, because I'm just kind of testing this out. And so as it says there, now I'm going to tell this to launch them to build another one of these, and I'll leave it with the same name because why not? Why fill up my craft name with just iterative numbers? I'm not really tracking them. I'm not that much of a pedant, or I'm not quite that much into the minutia and following the different numbers for each of my test flights. So I can close Kerbal alarm clock here. All right, so let's go take a look at. So that's how much time it's going to take until I build things. So it's going to cost me $100 per day. I still don't feel like I'm made of money there. So here it shows that I'm researching this. It currently doesn't show any other data, like how much data it has or which type of team I'm using. But yeah, it's a concept that's in development, and I think it's a good one. So I'm going to warp through the next day. So as I take a look at this time of day, I should see $100 tick down at midnight. The code will steal $100 from you at midnight. So I should see 500 go down to 400, and I should just see that tick down each day. Yep. And so I'm gonna do that for a few days as this constructs. I don't want to go $5,000 for that, because I mean this rocket itself doesn't even cost that amount. But I do want to get a bit of research into this without having to fly the flights myself, just also to test out the mechanic, because Agathorn's a stand-up guy, and I want to see if there's any weird bugs in this mod, in this new kind of function of the mod. So I think that's sufficient. I spent plenty of money on that research, so I could pause it or I could stop it. I've never tested or used the pause function. I'm fine going back and looking, because this console it's not going to show me how much data and stuff for me to make a good decision of whether to unpause or not. I'm just going to stop it. So if I were to want to start the research again, I'd go look in the VAB. Okay, so I wanted to cover that concept, and warp 2 complete. So now it's no longer taking money from me, or it shouldn't be. Looks like it is not. Something completed. Looks like I completed a tech. That's totally going to be a very useful tech for my future upper stages, so I can actually start targeting the moon, which I'm very excited for. Roll out. Because some of the, I haven't looked at contracts in a while, but let me take a very quick look. Active, nothing really, because I don't have confidence in doing that with my new craft. Not going to make a soft landing, but I could totally do, with those new fuels, I'm going to be able to, weird, it's saying crude orbital. Wow, it's going to pay out a ton. Yeah. Lots of contracts. Some I don't necessarily care for, but because it's noticed I've got some new technologies, it's in some cases it's telling me to do crazy things like position satellites in orbits. See, just some of these contracts just need to be cleaned up. Currently, all the props to him. Nathan Kell is like the only person, one of the very few people who has learned how the contract system works, and is like trying to create good contracts that make sense for RP-0. So if you have any interest in improving, like removing contracts from stock that don't seem to make sense, or kind of refining, improving, or adding new contracts for RP-0, we'd love to have volunteers. Just say anything on the forum page for RP-0, and we'll contact you and connect you to our IRC or our GitHub, because anybody willing to learn that skill and specialize in that for us, we'd love to have you, because we'd like to have more and better contracts for RP-0. Right now it's mostly Nathan Kell creating them once in a while whenever he's got free time, which as he works for Squad, that is less and less of the time. And me and a couple of other guys who test them or refine them. And I've learned a little bit about the contract system through testing the contracts, but I'm definitely not going to currently put the time into learning that contract system. I just don't have the time. That's the thing, right? We can't all be jacks of all trades, and Nathan Kell, I think, is a superhero for knowing so much about every system in RP-0 and Realism Overhaul. I can only specialize in a couple of things, but he can pick up everything very quickly. I'm sure that takes its toll. Weird. So it's telling me about contracts. I guess I never hit those sounding rocket contracts. Thankfully, they don't hurt me that much. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up the TestFlight console, and I'm going to fly this thing. It doesn't have very much battery power. I might need to add a bigger battery to this. Oh, and of course I should just fly straight up from the start. So I'm already, time is already money. Yeah, I totally need to put bigger batteries in this thing, or pump it up so that I don't run out of electric charge during flight. I might shoot myself a little more electric charge during flight, we'll see. Okay, so let's light up the engines. Oh, I also want to light the sustainer. Didn't set up that staging properly. All right, so all the engines ignited successfully. That is awesome. And I didn't. We wasted a little bit of fuel by not setting them all up at the same time. So right off the bat, I just want to point out, so the efficiency of the engines, known as the specific impulse, now we can look at them, because this craft, we can compare apples to apples. Whoa, it's kind of wobbling a little bit. Okay, so these side booster engines currently getting an efficiency of about 250, getting higher. This core one lower, but increasing faster. As you see, these are ticking up. So these booster engines, like the Thor first stage engine, are optimized for being lit and used near the ground. But even then, when there's less air pushing against them, they don't mind, pushing against the thrust. So we're going to get more thrust and more efficiency from them as we climb. Here, let me just angle down just a bit more. So let's see, these are now up to 270, not very long into flight. And so there, see, the core has already exceeded the efficiency because it is designed for being used in a vacuum or a near vacuum. And so that's why it is the sustainer engine. Also, if you look at the thrust, these are 750 kilonewtons apiece. This one is much less. So the sustainer, the core engine, has much less thrust, but at the same time, it is also much more efficient. So we plan to drop those off. Oh, oh, it's starting to wobble. Don't know why it's wobbling. All right, I need to set that up. So this sleeve is capable of dropping off those engines. Let me go look. Ooh, failure of one of my, loss of thrust, weird. Okay, so you see, that one has much less thrust than it had before, just 375 instead of the 750. So that's what that wobble was. So thankfully, one of my booster engines failed, but didn't fail entirely. And in part, that is because I'm lucky, and in part because I did have some data experience on that engine. And also my core engine has more than 0 experience, purely because I've used it just a little bit during this mission, and also because I researched it. So now, about 2 minutes into flight, we're going to drop off those boosters. I'm not going to cheat myself any electric charge, because it looks like we still have some. All right, so now you might want to look back at the video. I totally am going to see how much weight our craft lost by dropping that. We lost a huge amount of craft mass by doing that, and that's really why this was designed that way. So those 2 booster engines, extremely useful, absolutely necessary for getting us off the ground, but at this point, the thrust and mass weren't worth it. Because the less non-fuel mass you have, the more delta V you can deliver in a stage. That's just part of the equations. Part of it is the logarithm of the full mass over the dry mass, and so the difference between those two numbers is the fuel mass. So we effectively drop off those booster engines, and you also would have seen a huge drop in our acceleration. But at this point, we don't even really need that high of an acceleration. Because we're not fighting against the air, right? It's just about time until we fall back down. Let's go take a look. Separation failure, so nothing else has failed, so that's good to hear. So we've still got all 3. We've got the verniers running, mostly for steering this engine. Nathan Kell says it can gimbal. I have a little trouble believing that, but I'm willing to believe him because he knows everything. So we do have the thrust gimbaling on the center engine, but these little verniers also are to provide control for roll. Like I can tell this craft to roll. Come on. Oh, I'm out of electric charge. All right, well, I'm going to add some more. So see, I can dance them back and forth. I did a physical demonstration of this, and it was laughed at by another human being. It was fun like that. Using my fingers as these little engines to show how pointing them in different ways would make me dance. But yeah, you can use that for steering as well. If I want to steer down, you see how those arc. and that is part of what pitches us up and down like that. Still got electric charge, good. Oh yeah, of course I can't turn on SAS just because of the craft, how it is. So I'm just going to kind of point it towards the horizon now, because we're going to arc plenty, and we're delivering a remarkable amount of delta V. So one thing you should note if you ever try to design a vehicle like this, well, one, it's really hard with procedural parts, and another fact, I totally need to add bigger batteries to this thing, is that it's really hard to estimate how much delta V you're going to get, because you get to choose, or your, whatever program you write to control your craft gets to choose when you drop off that booster. But in practice here you can tell very clearly that I'm not going to get orbital velocity. But fair enough. I closed that. But so this sustainer, it's lighter than with the booster engines, it's more efficient, so that's why it's designed this way. So we're going to get more payload, towards, closer to an orbital velocity. Oh, and something happened. Not that. Something happened. We ran out of something. Maybe we ran out of liquid oxygen? We totally did. We ran out of liquid oxygen, so fair enough. So I must have done something weird about how much fuel I put in or where I put in fuel. Yeah, because there's kerosene in this, but there should be more oxygen in this. But anyway, so we didn't have the fuel mixture right, so we kind of burned out with extra kerosene left, but not enough oxygen. But hey, that was a way more successful test flight than we had had previously. And if I had a sounding rocket contract open, I at least probably would have got the sounding rocket low. I could have got science from space low. So I'm going to add a little battery to this because I do want it to survive up here so I can actually make some money from my next test of this contract. And I'll check my fuel balances in this hardware because I do want to get closer to orbital velocity with this. With just a small payload like that, this craft should be able to get into orbit, I believe. If you want to look up the Atlas score, score was a communications kind of test satellite put into orbit using an Atlas after many years of tests like I was doing here. But yeah, that's basically the flight of this. It's just going to be in free fall until this very light tank, this balloon tank, is destroyed by the atmosphere as we fall back down. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, learned a little more Atlas history, and I'm not sure what I'll do next time. Probably fly another one of this. I might up the ante by testing it with an Aegina upper stage, because more chance for failure is more chance for fun. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.